Okay, so in this video we will be talking about the urban sprawl and its consequences and what urban sprawl anyway means. But to begin with, if you really want to know a culture, how it thinks, its education and level of awareness, look at its urban landscape design and street sprawl. It will tell you everything you want to know. So, what do we mean by urban sprawl? Urban sprawl means the street network and how it's been designed. Now, there are different types of street networks. The first one is grid and degree 3 constructions. These are denser and they offer multiple ways to get from one point A to point B, facilitating environmentally friendly travel modes such as walking or cycling. However, dead ends, dendritic, and disconnected types, on the other hand, may only allow for indirect route between any given pair of locations, making car travel the only viable option. And so we want to avoid that in general. Now, the problem with economic growth is that we started to have more cars and more carbon dioxide emissions. Economic growth leads to increasingly motorized world, and it leads to energy use and greenhouse gas emissions from transportation to be increasing dramatically. The sector's energy use is expected to rise by 44% between 2015 and 2040 under the current policies, with carbon dioxide emissions from transport oil combustion rising by also as much. Global energy and integrated assessment modes indicate that even under aggressive efficiency and electrification scenarios, transportation energy and emissions will see more limited reductions compared to other sectors. Most global analysis, however, model transportation energy demand as a function of income, energy prices, and technology, and take little into account of the physical structure of urban centers that shapes our household decisions based on vehicle ownership and travel, or of community decisions on transport infrastructure and services. Now, today's choices on the connectivity of streets will dictate the future lifestyle of the next century or more. Even with more development, disconnected street routes will remain a fundamental constraint for whether it's our health or improving our economy in a different way. It may dangerously restrict future resilience and our health. It can lock in pathways of energy use and carbon dioxide emissions. They also can be considered as key predictors for future climate, energy, and social outcomes, because they lead to social segregation, and they do allow the high-income elite to opt out of municipal service provision and allows more car buying. And in addition, in a practical policy context, the regulation of development style and infrastructure is somewhat separable from decisions about the conversion of agricultural and natural land to urban use. So that really makes things very inflexible to redesign even a city in the future. Now, however, in the long run, sidewalk and transit provision, densities, land use, and both formal and informal rule enforcement are malleable to social, economic, and policy influences. So there's more than one factor that impacts how we design our streets and networks. Even if many cities continue to grow for decades, density may change and outlying regions may be subsumed into the long run. Low connectivity street networks lack resilience to adapt to changing pressures and resources, and ultimately to densify towards mixed use, transit integrated, energy efficient urban form, which is what we really want. We want more variety and diversity. Many countries in the world are still building ever more disconnected street network sprawls, and policymakers have a little insight into the underlying trends and the characteristics of new development, let alone how these trends may affect future energy and emissions. Therefore, a rapid response by policies, including regulation and pricing tools, is needed to avoid further costly lock-in during this current final phase of urbanization process. Educating the public about these matters is essential for them to be able to build a resilient future. Changing the curriculum also is very important, and having a people say in how we design our streets is also very essential. Now, a neighborhood that is highly permeable, this is the other way, on the other hand, the better way of designing, is more likely to allow transit to access an adjacent future development, and more likely to contain local services and jobs accessible to pedestrians living nearby, and so on. Building high connectivity pedestrian and navigable streets in the adjacent development, therefore has economic complementaries with connectivity of existing road network. So this means that within this urban revolution, this is associated with more walkability and less car use. And this means also more accessibility without needing the car. And this is an example of the city of Barcelona, how they increased their pedestrian space to 74% from 45%, and how the noise pollution dropped from 65.5 decibels to 61, which also means that nitrogen oxide pollution dropped from 42 to 38%. And this was all due to these decisions that were taken by the government as well as the people.